Well, let's go to Queensland's Parliament House now. Joining us live is the Premier Steven Miles. Premier, good to see you. Thanks for your time this morning. So, will you remove detention as a last resort from the Youth Crime Act?
Good morning. Thank you for having me. What we've announced today is that we will rewrite that section of the Act to make really clear to the courts that they must detain a young person if they are a risk to community safety. So they have to take into account, in the first instance, community safety when deciding whether to detain someone who's committed a crime.
So it's up to the court, it's up to the judge.
The judge will obviously still have a role to play, but this changes the law to say that they must detain a young person if that is necessary for community safety. That's what we've heard from the community they want to see. That's why we're changing that in the law.
Do you now accept the former policy was a failure?
What I have heard from Queenslanders is that that form of words, that policy, was causing them to lose confidence in the law and in the courts. And so I'm determined to make sure that the law is crystal clear, that where it is necessary for community safety, then that person should be detained. Of course, we need to focus on intervention and preventing crime before it occurs, but where an offender is a risk to the community, then they have to be detained.
So it was a failure. That's why you're changing it.
So we are changing it to make really clear to the courts that they must detain an offender if they are a risk to community safety. That's what we've heard Queenslanders want to see, and that's what we are implementing.
Right. It's not new though. This has been going on for years. So is this change 5 years too late?
Well, I've been Premier for 5 months, and I've spent that time talking to Queenslanders and developing this community safety plan that we released yesterday, and that includes these changes. It's based on what I have heard Queenslanders want to see.
Right, but you're Premier for 5 months, but you were in the old government for years.
It's my responsibility now that I am the Premier to ensure that our laws and our plans respond to what Queenslanders want to see. And I've heard from them that they were concerned that that policy was putting community safety at risk and undermining confidence in the laws and in the courts. And that's why I'm making this change.
YouGov data that we ran last week, Premier, has swings to the LNP away from your government. So are you a dead man walking?
Look, of course, I've seen those results, and I've always said that winning the election in October would be very hard, but that my focus would be listening to Queenslanders and governing for them every day. That's what I'm doing this week with this new community safety plan, which is all about making sure Queenslanders know that they can feel safe and be safe in their community.
Just finally, National Cabinet is on in less than 2 hours from now. What will you be suggesting to the Prime Minister this morning that works for Queensland?
Well, this is a really important conversation. Our domestic and sexual violence services, they're really stretched at the moment. We increased their funding by 20% earlier in the week, but I know they would welcome additional funding. There are also measures that we can collaborate between states and territories and the Commonwealth on, so things like sharing information about offenders, because we know that they can move from state to state and abuse subsequent partners, so making sure police have information about that. And then ultimately, prevention has to be the goal here. How do we educate young boys and young men that violence against women is unacceptable? And I'd like to see that at a national level.
Steven Miles, appreciate your time. Thank you. We'll talk to you soon.